And we are now joined by a legend, Boston Globe legendary columnist and NBA beat writer, spectacular, Bob Ryan. Bob Ryan, thank you for joining us here on our Mannion Copani halftime show. First of all, we got to ask you why you're here. We know, but you let the audience know why you're here.
I'll try to give the abridged version.
Yeah.
Chris Miller, the video coordinator here in sports, invited me. He contacted me about 3 months ago. Kevin Porter would be honored tonight. And Kevin Porter, what's my connection? Well, I covered Kevin, I covered the NBA. I was present in March of 1979 in the Silver Dome. He was with the Pistons when Kevin played what he has told the world is the most favorite game he ever played. They beat the Celtics. Are you ready for this? 160 to 117. I said 160. Dick Vitale was the coach. He was orchestrating the crowd in the fourth quarter. He was obnoxious, although he's a friend of mine, believe me. But he was overdoing. Okay.
He could be obnoxious.
Kevin, that night, had 30 points and 25 assists. One of the great games in NBA history that nobody realizes or talks about. He produced 80 points out of the 160. But here's the hook. I was the beat guy for the Globe, and the Celtics were playing poorly at the time. This was the nadir. This was it, the bottom out, right? You give up 160. And you have to play the insufferable, in my opinion, in those days, Kevin Porter. Kevin Porter was the kind of guy at the time that if he was yours, you loved him. If he wasn't yours, everybody in high school knows what this means. There's somebody, the guy you hate. He let you know how good he was in many body language ways, and somehow, and I described him as he was at his preening, strutting, take that you sucker best, unquote. Chris Miller found out about this story when he was researching and contacted me and told me about it. And I did a video, part of the video tribute that they've done for him. And he invited me. I'd like to come to the game. Well, of course, I'd love to come. I wanted to meet Kevin and have fun, kidding him. I fully acknowledge, how good he was. He led the league in assists 4 times NBA. But he was the kind of player that drove you nuts if he was on the other team. And that's the way it was. And I was, so. That's the hook. So I'm here. Secondarily, I've been aware of Maurice Stokes since I was like 8 years old. My father, when he played here, my father was assistant AD at Villanova. They played them. And I'm pretty sure now that we researched the dates and all, that I must have been there to see him play in the Palestra in 1952 when I was 6 years old. Because I know I went to every weekend game. My father we'd go to the Palestra doubleheaders and the Convention Hall doubleheaders in Philly. Yeah. And every weekend. And so I had to have been there. On the 13th of December 1952, I had to have been there to see Kevin Porter play. To see Maurice Stokes play. And of course, I was well aware of the whole situation with Maurice as an NBA player and being stricken and so forth. Then, one more. This place, okay? I've always known it's out in the middle of nowhere, literally, and everybody kids about that, and it is, I've been fascinated by the idea of St. Francis of Loretto. And I've always wanted to come here, and I had this Bonnie's Golden invitation to get here. This is my 207th venue for college basketball tonight.
Wow.
And I wanted to come here, and now what I didn't know until yesterday was, in addition to being in the middle of nowhere, your nowhere is on a mountain. I didn't know that.
Yeah, high elevation here for sure. We're speaking with Bob Ryan, legendary columnist for the Boston Globe, NBA beat writer extraordinaire. And so, got to ask you, being a graduate of Boston College, Catholic schools.
Yes.
Le Moyne being one itself.
Yep.
So how important have Catholic schools been in your fascination with basketball?
Well, it was part of the process. It's part of the thing. You were proud of it. And of course, I grew up as a Catholic in Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton Catholic was the state champion in 1957. It was a power in New Jersey for years. I was well aware of that. And my father was at Villanova, and I was a Villanova fan up to the day I enrolled at BC. And I still have a secondary love for Villanova and so forth. So I've always been aware of that idea of and the importance. And of course, this will be the 40th anniversary of the famous Final Four.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was there for that.
3 Big East schools and Memphis State.
And all 3 Catholic schools. Yep. And that remains one of the 5 greatest events I've ever covered in my life.
That's
was that
amazing.
Villanova-Georgetown game.
Yeah, and as somebody who grew up in Syracuse, as an SU fan, of course, all the Big East rivalry and everything. And we'll talk a little bit about the connection with the Celtics, with Villanova, with a certain assistant coach that Le Moyne had. But I'm trying to think now, those years you were at Boston College may have been years that Le Moyne was playing BC.
We did play, and I'll tell you this, when I was a senior in 1967-68, I was a play-by-play broadcaster. I was you guys, right?
Yeah.
In the student station. But we didn't travel. We did one road game, Duquesne. But I managed to get myself to every road game. Remember, in those days, the schedule was totally regional. The only time you went outside the East to play was during Christmas tournament or if you got into a postseason, okay? So the schedule was completely Eastern. I went to Seton Hall, and I went to Georgetown, and I went to Villanova, I went to St. Joe's and the Apostrophe. The one place I didn't go was Syracuse, New York, for either the Syracuse or the Lemoyne game. We did play Lemoyne, right? Yeah. So it's one of the missing gyms. It's not among my 207.
You have an open invitation to come to Lemoyne anytime you like.
And I got to congratulate you guys on your tenure, and I just read about your tenure.
33 years.
And what I did not know was that John Wilkin and Joey Hassett were in that list, and I had no idea it was that long for them. And this kind of makes me feel a little old because I well remember Joey playing. Don't worry
about that.
He could shoot the basketball. And I can't leave by saying that what you guys, how awful was that spectacle the last 40 seconds? Which team could outdo the other doing something stupid?
We've seen a lot of that this year, unfortunately. Lemoyne in its second year of transitioning to Division I. There have been some learning curves.
Well, they were, it was like who could make the last mistake, and you guys unfortunately made the last mistake.
Exactly.
But anyway, it was just, they're still kids.
So we have to talk about your connection with the Boston Celtics, with Villanova, and Lemoyne's previous assistant coach last year, Jamie Young, who was with the Celtics for so many years, but spent a year with Lemoyne because of his friendship with head coach Nate Champion's brother. Coming from the same part of Indiana, they knew each other really well. Jamie had lost his position with the 76ers, and his wife said, "You aren't just sitting on the couch this year. You're going to go do something." and he leveraged the year with Lemoyne now to be an assistant at Villanova.
Well, that's really nice. But I didn't get to know him. He was after I retired officially in 2012. So the last year I covered the team was 11-12, okay? But you know what he's famous for? He could shoot.
Oh, yeah.
He could outshoot the team. It was famous for taking on guys and beating them in the shot. Absolutely. So that much I know about Jamie.
But you would know Dick Light.
Oh, Dick White's one of my closest friends in the business.
He's one of our favorites of all time, too. He knows what we do. Bentley was in our league
but
for
I got one thing over him that drives him crazy.
What's that?
I got to the Palestra before he did.
Okay, I'll mention that to him when I see him.
Oh, yeah. Tell Bob reminded you, and he'll give you this. I know that.
So I want to ask you, of all the things you've covered, I know NBA was your specialty, and you mentioned that game Kevin Porter had at the Silverdome.
Yeah.
Was that when Boston had already drafted Larry Bird, or was that the following winter when they drafted him?
That was 78-79 season.
So before.
And they were before, and I got to see Larry play in an NIT game at home at Terre Haute.
Indiana State?
I was covering Providence against Michigan State. That was on Saturday afternoon, first round game. Indiana State was playing Illinois State in an NIT game on Friday night. And I drove out there with Jason Stark. I'm sure you guys know who he is.
Yeah, sure.
And Mike Madden, who was his colleague at the Providence Journal, who later became my colleague at the Globe. I drove us out there to see that game. And we saw that game, and we saw Larry Bird. Now, I'll tell you very quickly. The first play of the game. Tip, they get the tip. They don't get the tip. Illinois State goes down and shoots and misses. Larry brings the ball up, and as he's coming up in front of us, like on the right-hand side of the court, he suddenly uncocks from behind, off the dribble, a 35-foot bullet pass to Carl Nix for a layup off the dribble from midcourt.
Wow.
And that's the first time I ever saw him touch the ball.
Wow.
So that was telling me that was the beginning of my relationship, both personal and spiritual, with Larry Bird.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to ask you, all your years at the Globe, what were your highlights? What were the best things you saw? And we have about 35 seconds.
Well, I mean, obviously so many Celtic things, you know, and Bird was, and Havlicek, and who was very close to winning championship, the first championship in Milwaukee in '84, which was an epic series, a wonderful series. That meant a lot to me to cover, to be able to say I covered the team, for sure. But I got to go to baseball. I got to go to the Yankees and Red Sox. I got to go to 04. I got to go to games 4 and 5. They're down in the ninth inning. You know the whole story. Millar walks, Robert Steele second, and Miller scores. They're down 0-3. No one's ever been back in 0-3.
Right.
And
Rivera
the next night,
on the mound.
And the next night they go 14 innings and win. And they come back and win and do that. That's really memorable. Plus, I was on the ground floor of the Patriots thing, the Tuck Rule game.
Wow.
Without which, who knows what would have happened. Right call of a bad rule.
Yes.
I know, and I'm sure Al Davis went to his grave saying, it was a fumble! Because you know what? It was a fumble.
Well, yeah,
So,
you can look at it that way.
By the way, Chris works full-time for the Yankees, and I've done some work for them as well. So thank you very much for bringing up that Red Sox victory.
We've got enough championships, too. So it was an absolute pleasure, an honor to have you on our broadcast. Broadcast number 918, and we have a legend sitting with us.
Well, I got to tell you, everybody's been so gracious here, and including your Father Malik and everybody I've met. It's been a wonderful weekend for me. Not weekend, but couple of days. I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you so much, Bob. Bob Ryan joining us here at halftime on the Mannion Copani Halftime Show.